Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode. And I want to say for Mirror Word Chats, but I also am going to say for Wild Ride, Winds of Change with Brian and Amy, because this conversation today on who I'm going to introduce in just a minute is really like, she fits both of these topics really well. So I want to introduce you to my new friend, Sarah Joy Heart-Kym, K-Y-M. This is such a beautiful name, and maybe she'll get into why the name. But Sarah and I met the week that Brian and I got married in Florida, down in Fort Walton Beach. We actually met because of this community, these communities that are like this intricate, woven, beautiful tapestry of people coming together in this finished work message. Because Teresa Reece introduced us when Brian and I were down there getting our tattoo wedding rings and visiting people in Fort Walton Beach community. We had dinner with Sarah Joy and David, her husband, were part of the group when everybody got together. And we had a lovely conversation. We're like, oh, we need to do a recording sometime, right? So we had such fun that night, just talking and sharing stories. And now she's here. So say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Wasn't that a fun night? We had dinner out on the beach.
Yes, it was. It was wonderful getting to meet you and Brian. Yeah, it was fun hanging out.
Yeah, great conversations. And you know, I think just like why I do these recordings is because we just get to talk about like, oh, tell me about your journey. Tell me where Yeshua is blowing your mind with his goodness, right? And his love. And, you know, for many of us, it's overlapped with an introduction to the Mirror Bible and just really having that heart-to-heart resonance with truth of something we've known deep inside, but kind of felt like everything outside might be telling us a different story. And then it's like we step into this story and start to realize how loved and cherished and desired we are, just as we are, as we journey through this life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, can I
Say
share a
whatever
little
you
bit
want. Yeah,
of
you can
what
say
the,
whatever you
the
want.
mirror, because you mentioned the mirror. Well, for me, I grew up in church a little bit, not a lot. And when I was in my 30s, I had an encounter with the Lord, and hadn't been to church in years and years and years, had never read my Bible. And I was reading a book called Renewing the Spirit of Your Mind. And I woke up and I said, I got born again, back then, and what you would have thought. But I got awakened to the reality that I was absolutely loved and accepted. And the next morning I woke up and it was like I was seeing the sky and the grass and the water for the first time. I didn't realize I kind of lived in a gray world. And the next day after I had had that encounter with God, the sky was bluer, the grass was greener. I mean, and I saw light all around me. I knew I wanted to go to church, and I knew I wanted to start reading my Bible. But I would be moved to do things, to go pray for people. I would say things to people that I didn't, about their life, that I didn't know anything. I was doing all these things that I hadn't learned to do, feeling all these things, seeing these things, like going up to somebody and talking to them about their life. And in my head, I'm thinking, boy, I sure hope they have a husband and his name is Mike and they have a child. But being able to do all these things, I knew that it wasn't me. And I started going to church and they started telling me I shouldn't be doing those things. Who did I think I was? I was a brand new Christian. What are you doing? You can't be doing that. You can't be. I'd drive by hospitals and all of a sudden I'd start shaking inside, and I knew I was supposed to stop, and I'd go in and I'd pray for people and I'd see them come out of comas. And the church kept telling me, you can't do this. You can't do this. You're you haven't been to Bible college. You haven't done this. You haven't done that. You haven't done these steps. And so,
That
anyway,
must have been so frustrating. So
yes, it was. There was
deflating.
prayer meetings. I'd pray for people and they'd get healed and they shut down the prayer meetings. Anyway, that over time, I didn't want to go to church anymore because I thought, boy, if it was better when I wasn't a Christian, because I knew that I was loved. Because in church, I learned that, you have to do these 7 steps or these 3 steps or this or this or this for God to love you and God to bless you. Well, I already knew that God loved me and God had blessed me. And I could tell you a zillion stories about how he did. And then, so then I started going to different churches, and I'd be there for a while, and I'd be in leadership. I was always in leadership. In fact, I was licensed, I was ordained, all these things. But then I just thought about things and thought, this just doesn't add up. If you believe that Jesus Christ, the basis of Christianity, it doesn't add up, then how can you think that Adam and what he did is stronger than what Jesus did? Why? Anyway, I'd have these questions, and I'd get in trouble for asking questions. And then I would read, because I just would read my Bible over and over and just have these encounters with God and see him. I always knew that he was loving. In fact, this will be an example. Like this, a friend of mine from church, she wanted me, I had led a bunch of Bible studies. Well, she wanted to start another Bible study she wanted me to lead. And in it, she said something about how God judges, or it was something. And I said, whenever I've read the Bible, for me, it's always just been this love story. It's just a beautiful love story of how loved I am. She got mad. She stood up and pounded her fist on the table and said, and what am I supposed to do with that? And left and never came back. That it was like, how can you not know that this is love? And I'd have people, see things, and I'd think things, and I'd say it, and then they'd hang up on me and never talk to me again.
Because you're talking about love and the goodness of God.
Yes. And then I saw that we could bring heaven here on earth. We could live in heaven here on earth. And all these things anyway, so people got me, and then I just, after years, and I'd gone through a divorce, gone through all kinds of stuff, and then I was just like, Lord, I know that this is truth. I know that this is the truth of who you are, that you are loved, and that you really saved the whole world. And that, why are we thinking that we're stronger than Jesus, that we get to decide? Anyway, and I said, so there's got to be other people out there, because it couldn't just be me. Because if it's you, it wouldn't just be me. I mean,
because you knew
I know I'm special to you, God, but I'm not the most special person that you're only going to talk to me and tell me the truth and no one else. There's got to be other people. And I just was begging him because I was so alone and isolated. And then I went to a meeting, and I met this pastor. Anyway, within a couple of months after that, I met Francois and Lydia. Okay. And it was when they came to the United States. I think they hadn't been in the United States for like 22 years. And I think it was 2011. And they came to the United States. I think John Crowder brought them for Cana.
Okay.
And hopefully I'm saying that right. And I'm sorry, Francois, if I'm not. Anyway, that I got to meet them. And then, like I said, within a couple I met Francois, Lydia, Andre, and Mary Ann Ravy, John Crowder, and Rod Williams, Paul Young, Baxter Kruger. I mean, within a couple of months, I met all these people that were all saying the same thing, that God had been speaking to me for years, and I'd never heard anybody else saying it. I was just like, I can't tell you what relief and joy to hear. I mean, and they even more stuff than what I knew, but that same, in fact, so I bought, that was when Francois had the light blue Bible, the first one that he put out. I got that. And then if we're talking about the mirror, the one book, God Believes in You, what an amazing, amazing, amazing book. I
Oh
mean,
my
that
goodness. Let
that
me
book.
just say on that, like literally right now. So Matt Spinks's group and his home group is going through that book on Thursday nights
Uh,
and say, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, just reading the first few chapters of that is blowing my mind the way, and he's bringing, and that was written like in 2011 or something like that.
right.
I may be off on the year, maybe a little bit later, maybe 16, but that book is bringing in things that people are talking about now with frequency, with our energetic connection, with so many things on interconnectedness, and it's incredible. But yet
Well,
tying it in clearly to the gospel, absolutely seeing it, one in the same in here, where one speaks to the other. But yeah, it's fascinating. I love how you said you asked you asked God, like, aren't there other people? I know your nature, that there are others out here. This isn't just me, but I'm so alone. Because that speaks so much, Sarah, to so many of us that we've been on this journey. And then it's like, oh my gosh, when we just stop and go, I need my people. I don't understand what community is going to look like. And we don't want to step away from community, that our mind has this construct, just like you're experiencing him. And you think because of what society says is you need church. Well, church brought so much pain. That's exactly like Patrick Emery, who heads up the Mirror Word Bible study.
right.
It's his thing, his experience coming out of drugs and addiction and the different things, and then going into the church because he didn't know what else to do. And then they start to erode everything that he knew inside.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, what you're saying is so powerful. It's so beautiful. Like, so you asked, and then shortly within a few months, he's bringing you people. He's bringing community, even if it's not the community we're used to. He's bringing it through books, through people you meet that maybe are
Right.
far away. So go ahead and finish with that. So he brought these people, and you started
Oh,
reading God Believes in You.
yeah. Well, and I mean, I was reading the mirror, but that God believes in you is just such a, like, I don't know how many of them I've bought and given out. When people, when I'm, they're like with me and my husband, I'm sure you experience the same thing. They're like, what's different about you? What you're talking about is different. What is that, where uh, God believes in you? Because it's scriptures. They're all scriptures in there that Francois put in there. And it's an easier way, because I know, like, for my husband, we got married 8 years this month. 30th of this month will be 8 years. And when we met, shortly after, he kept saying, there was something different about you. Because he had gone to church his whole life, and he would, read his Bible, and he was like, what is it? And then I'd say, oh, if you knew what I believed and what I thought, you probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. He was like, oh, come on. And because one thing is that, it used to be when I was more of an evangelical Christian, I'll put it that way, that I needed to get everybody saved, so then you had the answers and how to get, but the more I studied, the less answers I had. But anyway, so what I said to him was, I told him what I believed, and I'd never said out loud the total completeness of what I believed about what Jesus did. And I went back to Genesis and explained to him how I thought it went. And he just had tears pouring down his cheeks. But I said, but why don't you? I said, if you love to read your Bible, why don't you read your Bible and see if maybe if you see that or not? Because I'm not going to, because there's less absolutes now, and to tell somebody, well, you should, or this or whatever, it's like, no, keep exploring. I mean, that's one of the things that I really learned from Andre and Marianne, and is to be open to opportunities and possibilities, to stop thinking you have things figured out and that they should be a certain way, but to continue. And so I'll say that to the Lord, and when I do, it's amazing and I'm like, okay, Lord, I am just open to possibilities and opportunities that I have never even thought, dreamt, or imagined of what you could do. And then these amazing things happen to just being open. And So to me, it's more when so then that's why, like, I'll give people God believes in you, because it's such a positive thing, and it's an easier way than reading the Bible. Because I had a bigger, Mirror Bible. I've been buying Mirror Bibles and as time went on. And so I tried to read it to my husband when we were first together, and he tried to read it, and he was just like, he couldn't do it. It was too much to take in. But it was easier for him to take in God believes in you. And now he has, now he's reading the Mirror all the time and doesn't have any problem reading it. But in the beginning, it seemed like it was, it's a lot to take in if
And it's
that's
so
not the way you've
different.
ever thought.
If you sometimes I like to have different two translations side by side to kind of go to what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
familiar with,
Yes.
and then read this through that lens also.
Right.
And
Well, I've been somebody who has always, I have tons of Bibles because from the very beginning, want to read all these translations so that I can understand it better, because each one has a little different, But what I love now about, because I was raised on, in the church that I first went to is the New King James Version. But I love now you can read the Mirror and go back and read the King James and think, oh, it is saying what the Mirror says. It just depends on the lens that you're looking through. I mean, I had gotten where, like at the first church that I went to after my encounter, getting born again, whatever you want to call it. I call it my Ocean Shores experience because I was at a place called Ocean Shores at the ocean when I had that encounter with God, that I knew the next day I wasn't the same person. I just, I was dead before and I became alive. I mean, it was just amazing. I was suicidal. I mean, I really did come alive and have been alive ever since. I mean, it's just an amazing thing, isn't it? To think how alive you can feel and how you can just know that you're so absolutely loved and accepted. And but then going to church, I soon learned that I wasn't loved and accepted by Christians. And that, anyway, so then of trying to work for my salvation, and it's like, well, I knew I was loved when I wasn't a Christian, and now I have to work for it. That didn't make sense at all. So anyway.
Well, on that note, Sarah, what's coming up for me is, so hearing what happened, your Ocean Shores experience, and like you say, suicidal, whatever else is going on, we're at the end of our rope, literally, like Baxter talks about in a lot of his books. He will, and scripturally referencing, he entered into the abyss with us. He entered into our deepest, darkest hell, right? And then he assumes that, takes it on himself, right? So that we can experience the fullness, the resurrection life of, we're crucified, co-buried, co-ascended, co-resurrected, and co-ascended. And so you experience that. Like, what I'm hearing is an experiential moment in time for you of that, the death, the coming up, coming into the new day. The skies are blue, the grass is greener, air is sweeter, all of the things. And I mean, what also pops in my mind is C.S. Lewis's book, The Great Divorce. If you've read that, where he talks about the bus and how people like live in this gray, dark, gloomy, and then if you get on the bus, that the people that choose to get on the bus go to the other side, where the grass is so green, but they walk on it barefooted, and it starts to hurt their feet. It's so lush. So the beauty, the eyes start to squint. It's so bright and so beautiful that they kind of want to stay back in the other side. And so that's like when you talked about the church, and they want to take that. In your experience, it was like taking that back. They're like, get on back on the bus and get on the other side where it's gloomy. That's where it's familiar. So like what you were telling me, I'm just going with this this internal thing that's happening to me as you're speaking, because it's powerful. We experience, maybe in our own unique way, like what you're talking, our own green grass, our own awakening. And then whether it's the church or familiar ways, and we go back because we're like, that's what's familiar. Like, I need to work for this love, and it's so free. He gave you this, and you knew that in your knower that this was, his love was so good. I mean, it's so pure. It's so for us. Like, I'm loved, I'm this. And then the world just tries to suck that out and say, you got to work for that.
Well, especially Christians. I went to work so that was on a Saturday night. So Sunday I woke up and it was different. I go to work on Monday. I work at working at Boeing and I'm telling everybody, guess what happened to me? I guess I mean, they're just, and then they'd say, oh yeah. I didn't even know they were, oh yeah, I got sick years ago, but it wears off. It wears off. Don't worry, it'll wear off. I'm like, why would I want this to wear off? Why would I want this to wear off?
Mm. Wow.
Who would want that?
I had my same kind of thing like that with post going through cancer, and everything like literally where an experience with him just started to take away. Like it was literally in some ways the best year of my life because of the way he entered in, the way he took things on, the way and people would say, you're just glowing. You're literally glowing and you're going through chemo and all these things, because I knew of who he was in the midst of that. And literally remember sitting at Starbucks, and the gal who I was writing a book, we were doing all the things that everybody talked us into doing, like commercialize everything that God's done. And I was just so full of life and talking to this agent person. She's like, you have to come down off the mountain sometime and enter back where the people are. You have to come down from the mountain and the heights. And I'm like, why would I? Same thing. Why? But I believed that then. I started to believe I needed to come back down so I could connect with people. And it started to shift things, And so we're reawakening to the reality too. But anyway, that's a whole nother other.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean we don't go through hard stuff, because I've still continued to go through. In fact, I've gone through some of the worst things in my life since then. And, but I'm like, do I want to share this or don't I? Would this be the time? Or of the things that he brings us through and heals us. And to see how things can be so different, like I was filled with so much regret in my life. And I think when people would say, oh, I have no regret in my life, because if I hadn't gone through everything I went through, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think that's a bunch of BS. They're just saying that to try and make themselves feel better. Because who would? But I can honestly say I don't regret anything I've gone through, because it has made me who I am. And I do like who I am. And for me to say that and to know that I have value, because my thing is until I was like 53 years old, I never knew that I had any value as a human being. Seriously, no value as a human being at all. And to realize that I have value, and I have value to God, that my life matters to God. To have that realization that my life matters to God and that I matter changed everything.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Because I seriously did not know that I mattered in the upbringing that I had. And anyway, to realize that my life does matter to God is and to be able to, the first time I ever had a thought that maybe I might have been beautiful, like as a child, because I had never thought that. And I don't mean this in a vain way, but to see yourself never having value or having any beauty until I was 53 years old was the first time that I ever had that thought. And to be able to look at myself and see myself as beautiful because that's how God sees me is such an amazing thing. And I don't know, do you want me to, it's very personal. It's very, I don't know if it would make people feel uncomfortable if I shared.
I think if you feel like Holy Spirit's taking you in a direction and you want to go, please do. Because here's what I want to say about that and what you just shared, Sarah. We look at time as a linear thing so much. We stay really earthbound, like talking in years. Because, for me at 58, it hasn't been very long that I can say the same thing. Lots of shame, lots of regret that has shifted because he starts to show it to you, your life experiences from a different lens and a different perspective that isn't about, like for me, is not about earthbound, like we look at eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, calling something good, calling something bad, versus seeing it through his eyes and realize that we don't have to have the answers, like you talked about before, that we don't have the solutions. The older we get or the more we study or whatever, the less we know, that I can look at through some very painful experiences throughout life, dotted throughout the timeline, the linear timeline,
Right.
that I have labeled and then carried the burden of shame, of regret, of resentment, of sorrow, whatever. And literally in the last handful of years, through some of my darkest days, been able to see it so, so different. And to see myself as beautiful, as worthy, as lovable. And you know what? And people can say, how can you not? You've done ministry and you do these things. You don't understand. It's not about that. It's a state of the heart that is a shift of, and frankly, for me, the mere making of huge impact. It's not my be all end all thing, but it's a very, very key thing that has been like a doorway that has opened me into so much more. And that being said, I don't think there's a man or a woman that doesn't somewhere, whether consciously or subconsciously, feel unlovable, unworthy, alone, not enough. That does hold us back from our destiny, like who we are created to be, whether we are 30, 40, 60, 70, 90. He's still inviting us because time, I feel like, is like, it's the kainos, it's circular. It's this ongoing thing. It's not about a linear thing. So if something that is coming up for you that you think might help somebody or be informative, then share it. If not, we'll segue and it's no big deal.
Well, I don't know. I just blanked out. I just was thinking something, but then I'm listening. That's the thing, is when you're totally listening, then you forget what you're saying because you're listening to what's being said, which I think is good to do.
I do too. Yeah.
I know what it was that I just like one. So this is a little bit off from what we were talking about. Okay. That one thing that people will question in this, that are in this, I don't know if you want to call this stream or deconstruction or whatever people want to call it, we'll ask, but Jesus didn't really feel what we feel, know what we know, go through what we went through. How could he have done that? And I believe what I see is he does go through everything. He went through everything mentally, emotionally, and he still is because he lives in each one of us. Yeah. And so we are all one, and he is now even experiencing everything that we go through. Yes. Everything. I mean, he's with us. He's in us. I mean, we can't be separate. So of course, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit feel everything that we feel. But something that I feel like they'll whisper to me at times when somebody's going through something, or I've gone through something and I understand because I've been there, that I feel like he'll say, and in this, you also understand, like I understand. To have the ability to be able to understand what people are going through, like Jesus understands. What an amazing gift that is. What an amazing thing to have true empathy and understanding, to be able to help someone else and to speak into their life when they're going through something in a way that only the Holy Spirit could do, and to experience the Holy Spirit through you, loving and experiencing with that person and helping them through that. And so I feel like that's one of the benefits of some of the things that we go through, is because we get to experience that with the Lord and with others and help bring them up, or identify with them, because he identifies with us. And so then we get to identify with him and them. And to me, that's a wonderful gift to experience. But
don't you think, Sarah,
so
that kind of comes from that place of being loved? Because when we know how
yeah,
when we know that we're loved and accepted and seen, that he sees us as lovely, as enough, as I wouldn't
yeah,
change a thing, we can then extend that, because now we're not searching to get something from someone else. We have it.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, and okay, I'm going to go ahead and share,
Okay.
and not to show you what the Lord can do and how wonderful
Please do.
he is. This is about him, not about me. I was so I was sexually molested from the time I was 3 years old. Um, by my grandfather, uncles, cousins. Anyway, um, and and I told my parents what had happened, and they would just say to me, "Well, my mother was, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. You just be quiet. You just be sweet. You just be quiet." I was taught and trained that anybody could do anything that they wanted to me, and I was not to cause a sweet scene or ever make them feel uncomfortable about what they were doing to me. And so it was just wasn't a big deal. It was never dealt with. It was never a big deal. It went on throughout my life. And then, and I went, and I ended up being in an abusive marriage. And
Track that.
anyway, I well, in fact, two abusive marriages, and one for 13 years and one for 20 years. And the last one, I packed up in the middle of the day when he was at work. My youngest had left for college, and I moved out and hid for a year. Anyway, but so during that time, I anyway, and then I had gone to counseling throughout the years, and finally, one counselor said, because I would always say, yeah, I was sexually abused, and they'd want to talk about it, and I'd go, oh, no, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big deal. So I'd never talk about it because it wasn't a big deal, right? It just wasn't a big deal. It's not like it didn't happen every day. It might have happened for years and years and years, but it didn't happen every day. It wasn't a big deal. And so the last counselor that I went to, they had said, well, how often is it okay for a child to be sexually molested? Which then I was like, never, never. And I was way overly protective with my children. They didn't get to go stay with anybody because I was going to make sure nothing ever happened to my children. And so I mean, I knew for anybody else, but for me, it wasn't a big deal, right? Anyway, but then when he said that, how often is that? How often is it okay? Then it hit me in a way that it was like, no, it's not okay. It would never be okay, and never should have happened. And I started to kind of feel it for the first time. And he gave me a book to read for adults who had been sexually molested. And so I read that book, and there's a chapter in that book that talks about what it does to you on the inside, what it does to you psychologically. And when I read that chapter, I was like, oh, well, this doesn't pertain to me because it wasn't a big deal. It didn't affect me. It didn't do anything to me. It didn't affect me. It just wasn't a big deal. So it didn't apply to me. Well, when I left my second husband and packed up and left, and I was in pretty bad shape by the time I left. In fact, I didn't know, I was in such bad shape, I didn't know if I would ever be able to really function as a human being again. And I was curled up in bed for a long time. But then I had a 3-day encounter with the Lord. And it started with, I felt like, well, maybe I should read that book again. So I was reading that book, and I got to the chapter that said what happens to you, what it does to you psychologically. And it made me angry. And I threw the book across the room. And when the book hit the wall, I heard the audible voice of God. And I wish that I could describe to you, I can't, how tender and compassionate and gentle and loving that voice, his voice was. It was, I cannot describe how loving that voice was and how accepting that voice was. And what he said was just a couple of words, but what that meant was huge. That what he said was, it's okay. It's okay. If that's all you can do, it's okay. It's okay. And I realized when he said that wherever I was at emotionally or mentally, it was okay. He wasn't disappointed in me. He wasn't expecting that I should be anywhere else, emotionally, mentally. He wasn't disappointed or upset or judging me in any way. He totally loved me and accepted and understood where I was at, and that if I couldn't deal with it, it was okay. It's okay. That I was okay. I hadn't let him down, because my thing is I wanted to please God. I wanted to be everything that God wanted me to be. Sorry, for some reason my nose keeps running today. And I knew I was totally loved and accepted, and he said, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. If that's all you can do. And then I knew that I was safe and that I was totally accepted, and I laid back in the bed and I turned my head to the side. And when I turned my head to the side, I could feel his arm around me. And it was like my head was in the crook of his arm. It was like I tell my husband, David, when we're laying in bed, and I'm just like, that's just the best place ever. And that the Lord was holding me, and I knew that I was safe, and he wasn't judging me. And so then I said, okay. I said, okay. I said, show me what that did to me. What happened to me? And so then, because one thing is I have all the memories of everything that ever happened to me. I just never felt anything. But I have all the memories. I remember everything. Anyway, so I was laying there, and everything, when I think, everything is a picture in my mind, and I could see me with my grandfather being 3 years old, because it started with him. And I saw the Lord had like come down and scooped me up, and he had held that part of my heart, the part of me that couldn't deal with it, the emotional part. He had been holding that in his heart for 50 years, because I was 53 when I had this encounter. So for 50 years, he had been holding that for me, because I couldn't carry it. And he said, of course you couldn't. And there was a lot more that happened, and there was a lot of violence in my growing up, and a lot of abuse, and that he had been holding me and keeping me safe mentally and emotionally all those years, because I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't have. And so I felt, and I realized that he would have held it for me for all eternity if I needed him to. And he wasn't thinking, why are you not taking care of this or dealing with this? Anyway, and so I saw that and I felt that, and I felt everything that it did to me emotionally and how much it had affected my whole entire life, my relationships and everything. I mean, how could it have not?
Right.
And who I thought I was, which was nothing and a nobody and worthless and full of shame. And I felt all of that came pouring into me, and it just passed through me and it went over to him. And I only felt it for a second, and I was totally and completely healed of
Wow.
all of the sexual, all of it was gone. All of it was dealt with in an instance by his love and compassion and understanding, me knowing that he was never judging me. He was never upset with me, never disappointed in me, never, ever. That I always was the love of his life. The apple of his eye was always beautiful and worthy of love. And that was just life changing. So at 53 years old, so I was in my 30s when I had that encounter with him. And then in my 50s, I had the encounter of him healing me of all of that abuse. And then the amazing thing about that is that people that I've gotten to help and to say that he's not holding that against you and that you are worthy. And anyway, that was another life-changing event in my life, of being loved by God and knowing how accepted I am and that I'm not being judged. And anyway, for some reason, I felt like I was supposed to share that.
No. First off,
Amazing thing.
no, Sarah, thank you for opening your heart and sharing. Um, I think on just a recent episode on the Mirror, we were talking, I tap, on a few occasions talking about the abuse as a child, and how that impacts our relationship with him. But what I love about your share in this is a few things, a lot of things. One thing that hit me first was when you said, you took, it wasn't until that counselor, after different ones, that said, well, how many times is it okay for a child to be molested? Kind of a light bulb moment. And
Yeah.
like, wait, so the heart starts to shift to say, wait a minute, that was wrong. And maybe there's something here. And that unfolds in the way he lovingly lets it, which actually probably didn't feel very loving, because you're like, I'm in a ball. I'm in a hot mess, can't get out of bed state before that revelation. So what I'm hearing, and it's just reminding me of different things that we come across. It's in that point of, I can't do anything now. Because before it's like, well, your guardian part of your heart says, what am I gonna do to stay alive? I'm gonna create a story, a belief system that says, I'm fine. Like, it didn't affect me. It didn't affect me. It didn't happen every day. That kind of a thing. Something that just compartmentalizes it, disassociation of sorts from it that happened at 3, and then you perfected by the time you're in your 50s of how to disassociate with the emotional component. But then it's in that place of surrender where you throw the effing book against the wall, right? Because you're like, and that's when the audible voice of God, you're at your wit's end and you're starting to show, I'm pissed what this did to my mind and my life. And it's in that moment of, I can't do this, where he says, now we're talking. And then what you heard of, it's okay. You don't have to do a thing. Like, what were the words again? Tell me, because I don't want to say it wrong.
Oh, it was that it's okay. If that's all you can do, it's okay.
And
Wherever you are at, it's okay.
And those words, like what I'm hearing, Sarah, as you're working with people, or for any of us, like to me, it was like God was saying, see, you can't fix anybody's crap. but you can be there in it and just be like, it's okay. Where you're at is okay. Like that, and for you, like that's what you needed to hear in absolute perfect love to take you on the journey of allowing him to heal things. However he does. For you, instantaneous. For others, it might be a lot different. And that we just show up and are there if they're not experiencing him. But you know, like that. For me, that's been the biggest thing of shift is like, he doesn't expect me to fix it. For
Right.
people. Just show up for people. Love them where they are.
Cry with them, hold them,
Yeah.
see them.
Yeah.
People, we want to know that we're understood. We need to know that we're understood.
Mm.
And to know that he understands us. That he understands us more than anybody does. And we can understand where other people are at. And that we don't have to fix them, but understand and love them and show them love and compassion. I mean, that's like when I had my Ocean Shores experience, you know, I'm so excited. And one of the first things, you know, I don't know if it was within a week, 2 weeks, I don't remember now, it's been so long, that I realized because my grandfather, he was a Christian. And anyway, so one of the thoughts is that I would see my grandfather in heaven. After my ocean, I was like, oh, I'm going to get to see my grandfather. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurting. I'm going to get to see my grandpa, and we're going to now have the relationship that we always should have had. And that made me happy and excited. I mean, how wonderful to realize that. And I told a couple of pastors that.
Whoopsie, right?
They got out their Bibles and are showing me, you know, I forget where it is, that no drunkard, no this, no that, no that will see the kingdom of heaven. Well, seeing the kingdom of heaven here on earth is different than going to heaven. But they try and convince me, and that somehow, this I just did not understand about Christianity. Somehow they're thinking that it's going to make me feel better to know that my grandfather would be burning in hell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does that go along with what Jesus says? How does that? I was like, this doesn't. And how can you think it's okay? How can that be good? That you think that it's good that somebody would be going to hell and that you're not? That you're somehow now superior? It's like it just did not add up to me. So I always struggled with things because it's like that's not the God that I was seeing. The God that I saw judged us, but they judged us as being righteous.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, how, anyway, it just, and so then I'd go from church to church to, you know, I mean, I'd get involved and stay there, but then it'd be like, how can you think that it's okay? And you're trying to convince me to feel good about somebody going to hell. Why would that make me feel good? Yes, my grandfather did these things, but I don't want to hold that against him. That didn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel good to be angry or hate somebody or want to go. It's like, I don't, it's like, this just doesn't add up to being a Christian. If that's what a Christian is, then I don't want to be one.
Count me out. You know, it's like, but I'm hearing what, like your heart literally changed in your 30-year-old experience, and he gave you a new heart, and then he handed your rest of your heart back. Like there something shifted there at 53.
Right.
And it's like the mind of Christ, like that doesn't even make human sense, but you're not operating from that. It's like the soul has submitted to the spirit, and the spirit's like, I'm stoked to see my grandpa, because that
Yes.
it's something different. It's the heart and mind of Christ, not of the wounded child, that's speaking.
And not out of his woundedness.
Yeah. No.
You know,
No.
I mean,
and this is
anyway.
available to everybody. That's the thing. It's like, this is not just a Sarah story. This is the story of creation. This is the redemption of mankind, of the cosmos, and we're invited into it are we going to? Because like what you just said about, when the pastors were bringing up and they're given scripture of going, the drunkards, the liars, the thieves, the perverts, or whatever aren't going to experience the kingdom of God. Like you said, he's just like, for me, my experience of those things in some of my own doings of things that were preventing life on earth, like in my life, and when they still do at times pop up, is there's interference. There's too much interference with a state of internal rest, and it gets in the way of experiencing the fullness of life that he's like, we're in constant communion. Like this morning, I kept trying to read, I'm reading Tommy Miller's book, Unveiled, right now, and I was trying to read, I just sat down after Brian went to do the RV work, and I'm going to read a short chapter, but I open it up, and then as soon as I'm reading the first couple sentences, I sense he's like, I'd love a little chit-chat time with you. And then I'm like, I really wanted to read this chapter. Like I'm on a mission today to finish this chapter, And then I sensed it again. I start to read one sentence. He's like, can we just chill for a few? And I'm like, okay. So I put the book down. Well, we go into an amazing time, of him showing me some things and taking me back into a vision from a few years ago. And he goes, I want to show you something more about that. And then I'm like, in maybe 15 minutes of this internal, amazing dialogue, conversation, vision, opening up some old dreams, things like that if I just go about my day and I allow control of my time, my clock, other things that get in the way and clog my mind, I miss the kingdom that's at hand. And that, like, so what you're saying, it's like, I continuously come back to the upside down economy of God. Like, he who is first will be last, he who is last will be first. And I don't get it, but maybe we kind of wrap up with this, because we've been talking a long time, and I could go for a long time too, but I don't want to lose people. But I feel like I see this all around me, especially as I get the opportunity to talk to people and hear stories. It's like in this place, why isn't even the question, isn't even on the table, but things happen. Like your journey as a 3-year-old child, that you didn't ask for the things that you walked through, but they just were. And it took you probably in a mental place. I'm just speculating, so please forgive me or fill me in if I'm taking it wrong. You didn't stay close to God. He was there. He was there from the beginning. He showed you that. But, the mind, the heart, the relationships, life, just taking, like, I'm going to go do my own thing, and feeling maybe like I'm alone, I'm not wanted, I'm not valued, I'm not, like you said, family saying people can do whatever and you're not to defend yourself. Like, yeah, you literally have your worth eroded from a very young age. And then something happens at 30. For some people, very different. The timelines, the stories, the circumstances are different for all of our lives. But you experienced the love of God, and he gifted you crazy, beautiful things where you're healing people, you're doing stuff, but you're encountering pain after pain. You have this beautiful mind that questions what the world systems are, because the creator of the universe is talking to you. And it's changing people's life. It's changing yours. And it takes you on this trajectory. And like when you speak, Sarah, there's so much power. There's so much love. There's so much life behind it. And you're teaching me. And it's like the voices that have been silenced are the voices the world need now. And that's the way he works. Because he like speaks through donkeys and does all kinds of crazy things, sends people playing tambourines around mountains to make them fall, and walls or whatever. And he's showing as people are coming online, literally and figuratively, to this truth and this beauty of who he is. And the ones that have had life on a silver platter and they didn't think they needed a God, which was part of my life in certain ways, and I went my own way for a long time. And I have been given many opportunities to decide if that's what I want, and I'm going to continue to be my own God, or am I going to go in the direction of life and be open to seeing life so different. And it's mind-blowing, and it's beautiful, and it's going to change the world. This is the message that our whole world needs, to know who is in us, who always has been, and who he is, and how he's moving and growing and healing us and healing nations as we heal in our hearts, open up to this beautiful message and impact through simple things. There's huge impact. Man, I am so honored to chat with you, to get to hear your story, little bits of it. I think there's so much more. And you know what?
Oh, there's a ton more.
There's so much more. And we'll do it again. And maybe for the, for the Wild Ride episodes, we'll hop on with David and Brian, and the four of us will chat a little bit about the RV stories and the different things and all the stuff we were chatting about before we recorded. But my gosh, any final thoughts or words or any bit of encouragement you want to just leave anybody with?
Just to know that God loves you and accepts you just where you are. I mean, that, to me, that's an amazing thing, to know that you're totally accepted, no matter what. That, for me, that was, and to know that I'm not being judged in a negative way at all. He only judges me good. He sees me good. And that when I see my side, one of my favorite things to say is, when I'm explaining to somebody, is that, and we've all heard it, but if you took a little child and from birth, I mean, that's like with my new grandbabies, when they're born, I'm like, oh, you are just with God. God just placed you in your mother's womb. So how is it? And talk to them and pray in the spirit with them and talk to them in the spirit. And it's like they just light up because they know, they've just come. Anyway, that to know that they are absolutely and completely loved. And if you told a little child that from birth, that they are love and patience and peace and gentleness and kindness and faithfulness and have self-control, all those things, that's who they would be. But unfortunately, people tell us that we're not good and that we have a sin nature and that we come from that. And if you believe that, if you believe you're not good, then you won't act good. But when you know that you're good, I love Baxter and Paul Young I'm not sure which one said it, that when the way of your being matches the truth of your being. So that's one thing why I tie back into God believes in you, because when you know what God believes about you and you believe it, then the way of your being will match the truth of who you are. But first you have to know the truth of who you are. So that's the thing, is to keep, and that's why we've moved to Oklahoma, because there's 5 grandbabies and 1 more on the way. And I want them to know who the truth of their being is.
Wow.
And so like my little granddaughters, I'll take them and they go, oh, Grandma, I was really good at the store. Do I get a prize? I'm like, I want to teach them to do good because you are good.
Yes.
You are good. So of course you do good. You don't just do good to get a reward. You are good. You are. We all are. And then if we could walk in the goodness
Step
of who
into
you
what
truly
is.
are. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's something when I'll start to feel bad or irritated, I've noticed in the last year or so, especially, I feel like Grace will say, do we want to feel that way? We don't want to feel that way. We're all here. Do you want to feel that way? It's like, yeah, you're right.
No.
We don't want to feel this way. And you just get to change how you feel.
You do. Literally step.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Step beyond the veil and go remember.
Yeah. And the Lord is like, is that how you want to think about that? Is that how you want to feel? I mean, we get to choose what we think and how we feel.
Mm-hmm. You know, as you were talking about those things, you know, that you speaking into your grandchildren, I was picturing the movie The Help.
Huh? Yes. Oh, yeah.
She gets
Yeah.
down to the little girl and
Yes. Yes.
you is beautiful, you is smart,
Yes.
you is kind.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yes, we is.
We is. So good. Sarah Joy, this was such a pleasure, so much fun.
Well, thank you
It
so much.
fills
You're
my
such a
heart.
delight.
Well, it's just fun. I mean, I'm like, I'm literally like, God, I don't know just how this all came about. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I love doing it. I love learning and hearing and connecting and just, it's just, yeah, the presence of the Lord is so, so tangible all the time, but yet like I just feel that in these conversations. So I'm super grateful. And we'll
Oh,
do it again.
something I'd like to say about disassociation. You know, you had said it, and I said, you know, the Lord held that. I realized at that time that, yeah, um, counselors, psychiatrists, whatever would call it disassociation, but I realized that disassociation, I feel, is a real gift from God, that we have the ability to do that when we need to do that, because I
No
couldn't
doubt.
have dealt with it.
Right.
And there's so many things that people thank you for. I feel like, Lord, thank you for the gift of being able to disassociate when we need to, because that's you carrying for us what we can't carry in
Oh,
those
yeah.
seasons of life. And what a blessing that we have the ability to do that. I
Right.
think it's a gift from God. And I know people probably don't agree with me, but that's what I think. It was a
I
gift
don't
for
know.
me. It carried me
Yeah.
for all those years instead of crushing me.
I think that's a beautiful point, and I think it's necessary because, to me, disassociation it is, and literally, like when people are physically, sexually abused, different things, and it can be a multitude of traumas, big or little, type A, type B, type things that a heart just says, "I can't. I need to leave my body.
Right.
I need to leave my body, rise above it, or move away." So that we can literally physically survive sometimes.
Yes.
And then there's this gift of, as we, I think, grow in awareness or come to a point in time when our body says we're ready, maybe it's 53, maybe it's later, maybe it's shortly after, where somebody says there's something that's missing that literally starts to turn the grass gray, the skies dark, and losing life because we are disassociated to everything to a varying degree. We're not even present for life in marriage, raising kids, work, play, you know, and so it's, and then the invitation to come back and associate. So it's like a broken heart, a mended heart. It's all, you know, you can look at it in a lot of different things where
It's
now,
like becoming congruent with yourself.
yeah, and coming back into those emotions so we can feel life when we are safe and knowing that we're actually safe, right? Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in and joining Sarah and I in this chit chat. I didn't have a cup of coffee, but I've got my hydrogen water. And
And I don't drink coffee, so
so we're all good. Yes, it's midday here for us. So this was great. You guys, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to share these with people that you think might benefit or be encouraged. And we're so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.